When you finally confront the truth about the time you've wasted without realizing it, something inside you breaks open. Not in a painful way, but in a way that exposes the silent erosion of your potential. It's like waking up in a room you've lived in for years and suddenly seeing the dust in the air. Dust that was always there, but invisible to you. That's how lost time behaves. Quiet, unannounced, unapologetic. And the moment you recognize how much of your life has slipped through your fingers while you were distracted, comfortable, or simply unaware, there's a shift, a deep internal pivot, a realization that every second you thought didn't matter was actually shaping who you are. Time is never neutral. It either builds you or erodes you. But here's the truth most people never dare to face. You didn't lose time because you were weak. You lost time because you didn't know its weight. You thought tomorrow was guaranteed. You believed motivation would magically arrive. You thought the world would wait for you to be ready. But the world doesn't wait. It never has. The truth about wasted time is uncomfortable because it doesn't attack your intelligence. It attacks your awareness. It forces you to admit that you weren't robbed. You volunteered your hours to distractions, excuses, and invisible routines that kept you stagnant. And once you see that, you can never unsee it. But here's the turning point. Awareness is power. When this truth finally reaches you, it doesn't destroy you. It awakens you. It transforms you. Because once you understand the price of lost time, you start to guard your life with a different kind of intensity. You begin to rise. You begin to rebuild. You begin to reclaim the hours that once slipped away unnoticed. There's a moment in every person's life when they hear something that doesn't just sound like truth. It hits like truth. And if you're watching this right now, this might be that moment for you. Because the message you're about to hear has the power to shift your identity, your discipline, and the trajectory of the days ahead. Not because it's poetic, not because it's dramatic, but because it's real. And reality, when spoken without filters, has a way of rebuilding us from the inside outward. You see, wasted time isn't just lost hours. It's lost versions of yourself that never had the chance to exist. It's the book you didn't write, the weight you didn't lift, the skills you didn't build, the dreams you didn't chase. And the most dangerous part is that it doesn't feel dangerous while it's happening. It feels normal. It feels harmless. It feels like something you'll fix later. But later isn't a date. Later is a habit, a cycle, a trap. And today is where the cycle ends. Before we begin this journey, I want to ask something simple, yet powerful. If this message resonates with you, if it stirs something inside you, if it pushes you to confront the truth about your time, then make sure you subscribe to this channel. Hit like so the algorithm knows people want to wake up, not sleepwalk. And comment below which country and city you're watching from, because discipline and transformation are global. Your location doesn't limit your rise. This channel is a place where discipline becomes identity, where wasted time becomes reclaimed purpose, and where your future becomes sharper, stronger, and more intentional. Now, let's begin. Most people drift through life believing that time is something you spend. But time isn't spent, it's converted. Every minute becomes evidence, evidence of discipline, or evidence of distraction, evidence of focus, or evidence of fear, evidence of someone moving toward their future, or someone retreating into their comfort. And the hardest part to accept is that you weren't drifting because you were lazy. You were drifting because drifting feels painless. It feels familiar. It feels like nothing is being taken from you. But time is always taking something from everyone. It just doesn't ask for permission. There were days when you felt tired and told yourself you deserved a break. There were nights when you scrolled through noise, convincing yourself you were unwinding. There were mornings when you pressed snooze because 5 more minutes felt harmless. But those moments weren't harmless. They were transactions, exchanges. 5 minutes here, 30 minutes there. Hours disguised as relaxation that slowly shaped a life that didn't match your potential. And the truth that wakes people up is never the truth that yells. It's the truth that whispers, "You could have been more by now." You never realized how much time you were losing because the world is designed to keep you unaware. Every notification, every distraction, every digital shortcut is engineered to steal your attention. Because attention is the currency of modern life. And when your attention is stolen, your time disappears with it. Not dramatically, not visibly, but silently. Like a thief that never leaves fingerprints. And when you finally step back and look at the trail of unfinished goals, abandoned ambitions, and postponed decisions, you begin to understand. The theft wasn't random. It was routine. But here's the part that changes everything. The moment you see the truth, you stop being a victim of your own habits. Awareness cuts deeper than motivation. Awareness exposes the cost of drifting. It forces you to confront the reality that you can't reclaim the hours you've lost, but you can reclaim the person you were supposed to become. Awareness snaps you into alignment with your potential. It forces you to become intentional with every minute moving forward. It turns time from something you ignore into something you guard like a warrior guarding a flame. And that's where transformation begins. Not in a motivational surge, not in a cinematic moment of clarity, but in the simple, painful, liberating realization that you are no longer the same person who wasted time unknowingly. You now understand the weight of a minute. You now understand the power of an hour. You now understand that every day is a doorway, and you've walked past too many without entering. But today, you step through, not because you're ready, not because you're perfect, but because you finally know the truth. Time isn't waiting for you, and it never has. From this moment forward, you no longer drift. You decide. Every life is shaped by routines, but not the routines you acknowledge, the ones you repeat without noticing, the invisible patterns, the unconscious defaults, the reflexive habits that steal your time while convincing you that nothing is happening. These routines are the quiet architects of a life lived below potential. They don't scream for attention. They don't feel dangerous. They feel ordinary. And because they feel ordinary, you never question them. You wake up, check your phone, scroll through updates, drift through conversations, passively consume content, and by the time you notice the day slipping away, it's already too late to reclaim it. Invisible routines don't ruin your life quickly. They dismantle it slowly. Think about the moments you told yourself you would start after this episode, after this message, after this short break. These micro delays created a rhythm that taught your mind to negotiate with your goals. The negotiation always sounded reasonable. 5 more minutes, 1 more distraction, a little more rest. But every delay was a signal that you weren't in control of your time, a signal that convenience had taken command of your direction. And convenience is a terrible leader. It always chooses the path that feels good now, not the one that builds you for later. Invisible routines have a way of shaping your identity without your awareness. You didn't choose to be inconsistent. You repeated inconsistency until it became normal. You didn't choose to be easily distracted. You simply let distraction become familiar. You didn't decide to procrastinate. You allowed your mind to associate important work with discomfort. And once discomfort becomes the enemy, your entire potential becomes collateral damage. Because growth demands discomfort. progress demands resistance, and invisible routines shield you from both, leaving you trapped in a loop of ease that feels safe but leads nowhere. But here's the truth that separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. Your life isn't controlled by your goals. It's controlled by your patterns. Setting goals is easy. Anyone can imagine a stronger, smarter, more disciplined version of themselves. That requires nothing. But changing patterns requires everything. It demands self-awareness. It demands honesty. It demands breaking the quiet rituals that have kept you stagnant for years. And when you begin to identify these rituals, something powerful happens. You stop living on autopilot. You reclaim authorship. You become the one who chooses, not the one who reacts. Breaking invisible routines doesn't start with massive action. It starts with recognition. It starts when you finally admit that the biggest obstacles in your life are not dramatic. They're subtle. They're the tiny decisions that pull you away from discipline. The small distractions that seem harmless. The habits that feel comfortable but cost you the future you want. And once you acknowledge them, you unlock a new kind of power. The power to rewrite your patterns intentionally. The power to replace autopilot with purpose. The power to build rituals that pull you toward growth instead of routines that bury your potential. This is how you begin to reclaim your time, not by wishing for more of it, but by refusing to lose it in silence ever again. There's a moment in every human life when you feel the presence of the person you could have become. Not as a fantasy, not as a dream, but as a shadow walking beside you. A version of you built from the time you didn't use, the skills you didn't build, the strength you didn't develop. This version of you isn't imaginary, it's mathematical. It's the sum of every hour you let slip away. And when you finally acknowledge that this alternate version of yourself exists, you feel a weight, a pressure, a sense of unfinished business. Because potential, when ignored, doesn't disappear. It lingers. It reminds you. It asks you who you might have been if you hadn't surrendered so many days to fear, comfort, and distraction. Unlived potential is the heaviest regret because it isn't tied to a single moment. It's tied to thousands of them. Every time you said, "I'll do it tomorrow," you added another brick to the wall separating you from your future. Every moment you avoided discomfort, you built another layer. Every decision to choose ease over effort turned into a barrier that didn't just delay your progress, it rewrote the direction of your life. And the hardest part is this: not reaching your potential doesn't feel catastrophic in real time. It feels quiet. It feels gentle. It feels normal. But normal is where dreams go to suffocate. Most people never confront their unrealized potential because confronting it feels like betrayal. It forces you to face the truth that you weren't held back by the world. You were held back by the version of yourself that chose temporary comfort over permanent change. It forces you to admit that your potential wasn't stolen. It was abandoned. And this truth is sharp. It cuts through illusions. It exposes everything you avoided looking at. But this truth is also freeing. Because once you admit you're the one who limited yourself, you're also the one who can free yourself. The difference between the person you are and the person you're capable of becoming is measured in recovered hours, in the days you take back, in the discipline you choose to build. And potential isn't reached through grand gestures. It's reached through consistent, intentional effort, through choosing to show up when you don't feel ready, through refusing to stay loyal to your old excuses, through replacing emotional decisions with strategic ones. Potential isn't destiny, it's direction, and you control the steering wheel. But here's the truth that transforms people. The version of you that you envy, the one you think is stronger, wiser, more disciplined, that version of you is not distant. It's not unreachable. It's waiting behind a door you haven't opened yet. A door built from commitment. A door built from small decisions repeated with integrity. A door built from hours reclaimed and used with intention. You don't unlock your potential by hoping. You unlock it by becoming a person who no longer wastes the time that was once slipping away unnoticed. And once you begin that transformation, your potential stops being a ghost and starts becoming your identity. Reclaiming your time doesn't begin with motivation. It begins with ownership. Ownership of your minutes. Ownership of your actions. Ownership of the patterns that have shaped your life until now. Most people wait for the perfect moment to start changing, as if discipline appears only when conditions are ideal. But discipline is not a visitor. It's a construction. It's something you build with raw, imperfect effort. It begins the moment you stop blaming circumstances, people, your past, or your mood. The moment you say, "My time is mine again," everything shifts. Because discipline isn't about being strong. It's about refusing to stay weak. You reclaim your hours by creating boundaries. Boundaries with distractions. Boundaries with your impulses. Boundaries with the part of you that wants comfort more than growth. Most wasted time doesn't come from laziness. It comes from unprotected focus. Your mind is vulnerable when it has no structure. Your day collapses when it has no framework. The world around you fights aggressively for your attention. And if you don't defend it, you'll lose it by default. Reclaiming your time requires discipline that feels almost aggressive. You draw lines. You say no to things you once said yes to. You commit to routines you used to postpone. This is how you rebuild the architecture of your life. But discipline isn't just a system. It's a self you build, a new identity, a new internal language. At first, it feels foreign. You force yourself to do the work. You push through resistance. You silence the excuses. This phase feels unnatural because your mind has been wired for ease. But over time, something extraordinary happens. Discipline becomes familiar. It becomes comfortable. It becomes the foundation of who you are. You begin to crave structure. You begin to respect your own time. You begin to see the world differently, not as a place where things happen to you, but as a landscape you shape through your choices. Every hour you take back becomes a seed. 1 hour of real effort becomes confidence. 2 hours become momentum. 3 hours become identity. You start stacking days of discipline, and every day adds another brick to the future you're building. The transformation is subtle at first. You feel a little sharper, a little more focused. Then it becomes obvious. You wake up earlier, you move with intention, you speak with clarity, you follow through on your promises, and eventually it becomes undeniable. People around you notice the change. They see a version of you that is no longer casual with their time, a version of you that has taken responsibility for their path. Reclaiming your hours isn't about doing everything at once. It's about refusing to lose another day to unconscious habits. It's about fighting for your time the way you would fight for something priceless, because it is priceless. It's about choosing progress over comfort, clarity over noise, intention over autopilot. And once you reclaim your time, everything changes. Your self-respect rises. Your confidence grows. Your life begins to align with the person you always knew you could become. Discipline is the bridge, yes, but it's also the engine, the weapon, and the compass. And now that you've learned the truth about your time, you're ready to use them all. Every transformation has a burial, a moment when the old you, your excuses, your delays, your comfortable habits, finally loses its power. People think transformation begins with inspiration, But that's a myth. Inspiration wakes you up. But transformation begins the moment you stop negotiating with the voice that has been holding you back. The voice that says, "Not today. I'm tired. I'll start soon." That voice has shaped more wasted time than any external force in your life. And when you finally confront it, when you strip away the emotional padding around your excuses, you discover something unfiltered and liberating. The only thing standing between you and the person you want to become was you. Excuses are comfortable because they have familiarity. They protect you from responsibility, and responsibility demands effort. But the truth is that excuses don't protect you. They imprison you. They build walls around your potential, walls made of soft language and soft choices. But here's the turning point. Once you recognize an excuse as a lie you've told yourself often enough to believe, it loses its authority. You begin to see how many of your limitations were self-constructed, how many of your barriers were built from fear disguised as logic, how many dreams died in the hands of "not right now." And that realization is painful. But pain is a teacher that motivation can never match. The rise begins when you start doing things without waiting to feel like it. When you stop treating your emotions as commands and start treating them as noise. When you move, even when the resistance feels heavy. That's what discipline truly is. Not the absence of emotion, but the refusal to be ruled by it. And once you take that first step, uncomfortable, unmotivated, uncertain, you activate a different version of yourself. A version built on action, not intention. A version that grows stronger with every task you finish, every commitment you honor, every moment you prove to yourself that you are no longer controlled by impulses. Momentum is born in the smallest victories. Waking up when you said you would, finishing the task you wanted to avoid, choosing purpose over distraction. These moments feel small in isolation, but they accumulate into identity. Every time you follow through, you rewrite your self-image. Every time you choose discipline, you strengthen the architecture of your future. And what once felt impossible becomes your new baseline. You begin to feel a tension inside you, not the tension of resistance, but the tension of potential, a force pulling you forward, a restlessness that refuses to let you go back to who you were. That's when you know you're rising. And here is the ultimate truth. Once excuses die, the real version of you finally emerges. Not the version shaped by fear, not the version shaped by habits you didn't choose, but the version shaped by intention, clarity, and self-respect. The world begins to feel different, not because it changed, but because you did. You move with purpose, you speak with conviction, you act without hesitation, and every decision from this point forward becomes a declaration. My time is no longer a sacrifice to comfort. This rise is not loud, it's not dramatic, but it is unstoppable. And once you begin rising, nothing can pull you back to the person you were before. You've outgrown the cage that wasted your hours. This is the moment where everything becomes a choice. Not a feeling, not a circumstance, not luck. A choice. The time you've lost is gone, but the time you still have is untouched, waiting for direction. And that direction only appears when you decide you're done living on autopilot, done surrendering your potential to distraction, done treating your future like it's guaranteed. Nothing changes until you choose to change. But when you do, your entire life begins to fold into alignment with the standards you finally set for yourself. Your rise won't be perfect. You'll stumble, break routines, lose focus. But that doesn't erase your progress. What defines you is your return. Your refusal to drift back into the version of yourself that wasted hours without noticing. You're not chasing motivation anymore. You're building self-respect through discipline. And every disciplined choice becomes a signal to your mind. I'm not who I was. I'm building who I will become. That is the foundation of a life that moves forward. So take this message with you, not as inspiration, but as a reminder. Your time is your currency. Your habits are your blueprint. And your discipline is the engine that will shape the future you've been avoiding for far too long. Stand up. Start now. And don't return to the person who allowed days to vanish unnoticed. This is the rise you owed yourself.